last week we covered the economic model. Did anybody play around with that spreadsheet and figure out their numbers?
No, but I'm meaning to. It's on my list of things to do.
Perfect. All right.
It's an awesome tool, I'll tell you that.
It is. It makes it really easy, right?
Yeah.
Makes it easy to start figuring out. So if you guys have any questions about that, let me know. All right, so we'll jump into today is the lead generation model. So what we're going to look at first is the positioning battle, right? So if you look at the lead generation model, our main objective of lead generation is to be first or second in the mind of buyers, right? So we're jockeying for that positioning in buyers and sellers' minds, right? You want to be number one or number two because they only remember the top two things, right? Like, Peter, name me two pairs of shoes, two manufacturers of shoes.
Ferragamo and the one that means devil. I don't know. I got a pair. Let me look at my shoes. You're right, though.
Out.
All right. How about you, Josh? Two pairs of shoes, shoe manufacturers.
Nike and Adidas, but the funny thing is when I was reading the book, I was like, there's no way, right? I can like list like 5 or 7 pairs of shoes or cereal. You really can't. Like you have to really think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually, first one's easy. Second one, you got to think for a second. Third one is really tough, right?
And the fourth or fifth, it's really hard.
Exactly.
Yeah, and no one's going to sit there and think hard about how many realtors they know. I can tell you that. So.
Right.
So you really need to be first or second. And I know, that's why people say all the time, I can't believe my friend bought and they didn't use me because they didn't think about it, right?
Worse.
They thought of somebody else.
The funny thing is, like, it's always like, for us, it's always on our minds. And we kind of think in terms of, allied resources. We think in terms of that. But when we think about, the average homeowner, they're just not thinking about real estate or, real estate investing. It's just not something that they're thinking about all the time.
Yep. NAR did a study years ago. Well, they do it every year, right? And most buyers and sellers, buyers interview 66% of people only interview one agent for buyers. Only 20% interview 2 agents. And sellers are even better than that. If you go on sellers, 75% of the time, they only interview 1 agent. So if you're the first agent that shows up or contacts them and get an appointment, usually you get it, unless you said something wrong, right? Frequency and consistency in lead generation is critical. Being consistent is one of the biggest problems that we have as real estate agents. And it doesn't matter if you're an individual agent or on a team, because what happens is you prospect for business, you find business, and then you start dealing with that, and then you don't continue with your lead generation. And that causes problems. That's going to cause you to do this, right? Your business isn't going to be very balanced. So
I think like we talk a lot about, there's a lot of people who are, getting ready to get ready. We think we need to have all these answers. And really, it's more if we just show up. Most of the time, if we can just show up and have the conversation, we'll get the opportunity. But we hold back. We think we've got to have all these answers or fancy tools or fancy brochures, and it really isn't. It's just showing up and having the conversations. And the more frequently we do that, the more chances at bat we have.
Yep. So 3 key areas of the lead generation model, right? So the first one is prospecting and marketing. So prospecting is attracting them to you, right? You're going to find them. And that method costs less money than the other one. right? So you're prospecting, you're cold calling, you're door knocking, you're doing different things to find business. And then you have marketing, right? They find you, they see your ad, they see your advertisements, your Facebook, whatever it may be. That costs more money. So generally, when agents start, they're doing the prospecting, right? They're doing things that don't cost money because agents usually don't start with a lot of money. So if we break that down, prospecting and marketing, you have the general public. So you're going to target haven't mets and allied resources, right? So haven't mets are people you have not met yet. Just completely cold call. You might meet them in an open house. You might meet them circle prospecting. You might meet them at a networking event. Like Peter probably meets them at breakfast, right?
I just went to a breakfast today.
There you go. See, I met one yesterday at the hospital.
Were you a patient?
I just happened to be there for a test, but we were talking about bike riding. I don't want to get into long. We were talking about bike riding, and it turned to real estate. So haven't met, right? Prospecting, and then you have met. You have people that you know that you should be in your database, and we'll talk about that. And then you have your allied resources, which I have found is one of the best ways to prospect. Right? Those are,
I can't hear. There's like a lot of background noise. I can't tell where it's coming from.
Those are your title reps, your loan officers, people you do business with, right? Your inspectors, those people. I have found those have been really good with leads.
Lenders are also the lenders that you work for asking for referrals with your lenders.
Yeah. Yep. So the goal of prospecting is to prospect and market yourself to these groups in such a way that as many as possible over time place you in their number one or number two. Like if somebody says, hey, I'm thinking of buying a house, they're going to say, you need to call Josh, or you're going to need to call Peter, whoever, right? You want to be top of mind.
So the challenge when we don't have a systematic way of reaching out to these people is, you're really trying to, get a needle in a haystack. Like you're trying to be there when they're ready to purchase. And there's just no way to know, like things happen in people's lives. So when we have this systematic way of reaching out to them, we don't have to be there exactly when they say, hey, you know what, I think maybe we need a bigger house, or I think, a job change came and they're going to be relocating. When we're talking with them monthly or every other month, or we have mailers that are being sent out to them, or whatever way that you choose that you're prospecting, but you're doing it systematically, then you'll build that top of mind. So when that time comes up that they say, I had a job transfer, we're going to have to look at selling this house. It's, I know exactly who to talk to. I just talked to Peter a week ago and he was telling me about the market. And so let's give Peter a call. You're already building that relationship so that when they decide it's time to make a move, you're automatically the person that comes to mind.
What I found interesting, I mentioned the place I was at yesterday. Her best friend is a realtor, but she was asking me if I had any off-market properties that they might be interested in, right? And they're just thinking of moving. They're thinking ahead of time that their house is going to be too small soon because she wanted to have another baby. And so she's already thinking and asking questions about that, right? But she's asking others. So I thought that was interesting yesterday.
Can I say something? That's a perfect example of people do not know how our business works or what we do sometimes.
Right.
So they have, I have clients that talk to other realtors, clients. And I can't say, you can't talk to them. But anything that comes into their mind at the time. So it's important, for me to remind them. This has happened several times at Rotary. I'm sitting at a table and somebody says they just sold their house.
Mm-hmm.
And Ted Vecchio has to put a rope around me and restrain me from jumping over the table and strangling them. But I have nobody to blame but myself, because they don't understand what we do and how we do it.
Right.
That's been that's the biggest challenge I always have.
Right.
The other thing that I thought was interesting, so she said, oh, you're in real estate. She said, one of my best friends is in real estate. And she said, she tells me there's no houses to buy because there's low inventory. Do you know of any off-market properties that might be a fit for me? Right? So the story that her friend, agent, whatever is telling her is already setting her up for, I need to look someplace else. Right? So you got to be careful what you say or how you say it, because in this case, she's her best friend and she's already looking for someplace else that she might be able to find something. So
I think sometimes we get caught up in thinking that, well, my friends don't want to buy, they're not ready to buy, or we kind of build this story up in our head. And yes, we want to do business with that first layer of people that we have in our databases, but we're also looking to tap into their sphere and who do they know. And so, and it isn't a, calling or mailing and, do you want to sell your house? Do you want to sell your house? Really, there's a formula for generating that. And it's about first educating. So making sure that your phone calls are about educating them about the market. Like Jim said, the truth is not that there aren't homes to purchase. And the truth is that we should be offering to look for off-market properties. I mean, that's really the truth of educating them about what the market looks like now and moving forward. And then I think the next step of that formula is asking for the business. And I think that's one thing we feel uncomfortable with, asking for the business. But it's just not part of their thinking. So we have to be constantly talking about that. And then the third one is when they do send us a referral, to make sure that we reward that. And it's not necessarily a gift. Some people do gifts. I mean, it could be a phone call, saying, I appreciate this. I appreciate the trust that you've shown me, but rewarding that. So that's really how we want to set up these touches with them, is really more on educating and being a resource for them. And if we do that consistently, then when that opportunity comes up, either with them or with their sphere, people they're talking to, will be that person that they say, I really trust Jim. I was just talking to him about the market last week, and other people are telling me that there's no properties available, but Jim's talking to me about off-market properties. So we want to keep educating them and be systematic about it.
I found handwritten cards. People really like those, right? Nobody takes time to do those anymore. And if you're going to reward, it could be a phone call, but it could also be a handwritten card, right, to them. Or if I have a good conversation with somebody that I'm prospecting, right, you make some prospecting calls, circle prospecting calls or something. You have a really good conversation. Send them a handwritten card. I know several times before, Yvette's had one. The girlfriend gets the card, or they save the card, and then when they're ready to sell, they call you. We've done that before.
Yeah, I've actually had quite a few of those where when I'm calling, if I feel like I had a good connection with that person, then I kind of make a notation. And when I'm finished with calls, I've gone back and written just a thank you, about, it was great having a conversation. If ever I can be of, answer any questions for you about your neighborhood, give me a call. And we picked up listings from those thank you cards.
So the next thing is, the next key area of lead generation is set up your database and feed it consistently, right? So your database is your business, and building the number of names in it and a relationship with it is the core of your business. And I've been to a lot of trainings. I've been to a lot of family reunions, mega camps, all that stuff. And one of the questions I used to ask everybody was, if there was one thing that you would have done sooner in your business, what is it? And every one of the big agents all said, I would have paid attention to my database sooner. Every single time, without fail.
I think that there's two keys to that database. One of them is getting names in there. So we've got to be out talking to people and bringing those names in there. But I think what a lot of people miss is then that next step is building relationships with those people that are in your database. And I know a lot of people ask us, like, what's the secret? And those relationships, that's really the secret sauce. That's really it. Building those relationships. And I know Peter's business is built a lot. He really dives deep into relationships and meeting with people and really understanding his people on a really deep level. And he's seen a lot of growth in his business on those relationships. So that's really the secret.
And so you're building those relationships by calling and texting those people?
Yeah, I mean, I would really look at my database by, you've got the way we have our setup is you look at who are your really go-to people. Who are the people that if they saw someone across the room and having a conversation about why, I really would like to get my home sold, that they would walk over and they would say, oh, I know, you've got to talk to Josh. You've got to talk to my friend Josh. And so those are the people that you want to be meeting with consistently. I mean, I would be meeting with them probably face-to-face once a month. So that, and where you're really talking about, what's happening in your business. And it's not like an in-your-face conversation about, I need business or who do you know? It's not about that. It's that relationship building that you really want to go deep and how can I help you? And this is what it looks like in my world. But I would start with those people and make sure that you're contacting those people monthly. And then that next level, you probably once every 3 months. So 4 times a year, I would reach out with a phone call on those. And then you have those that, maybe they'd use you, maybe they wouldn't. And so they'll be part of maybe an email campaign, those kind of things. But definitely those people that you feel are your top level, you want to be meeting with them and having phone conversations every quarter.
They say in there to like your top 25, right? But start smaller at first until you get used to it. Start with like your top 5 and meet them at Starbucks. It's hard now, right, with the pandemic. Normally you go to breakfast, have lunch, get coffee, something like that, right? And we try and call our database every quarter. And there's a formula for that, and we could talk about that later too. But so feeding.
There goes that connection. He said he's having a bad connection.
There, if you don't set that up,
you froze on us.
Oh, so the systematic marketing. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
The systematic marketing to your database, right? And so we talked about the haven't mets and then the mets, right? And so there's different systems. For your haven't mets, it's going to be like a 12 direct system, right? 1 email a month, something like that. Your mets.
Newsletter, maybe a newsletter a month.
Yeah, newsletter. I found the best thing to do is set them up on a market report. So if you, depending on what database you have or whatever, we set everybody that's in our system on a market report.
I think you have to think of people.
What if you don't know, what address or what neighborhood they're living in? Do you just kind of like randomly pick neighborhoods around town? You know what I'm saying? Like if I know someone lives in Northview, I'm going to, click on the Northview neighborhood.
So if somebody's in our database as a Met, there's certain things that we've got to have. We've got to have their name, email, phone number, address, right? And that's one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later. Like you need all the information. And I know even when we started, I had somebody's name and I might have their phone number, but I didn't have anything else about them, right? And so then when you do your campaigns to stay in touch with people, you're missing things because you can only do the phone calls. So they're not getting text or they're not getting emails. And if you only have an email, then you can't call them. And so you really need all the pieces of the information. And we spent some time there going through making sure all of our missing pieces of contact information we got.
So I would start with your homeowners, people who own a home, and set up your market reports around their home so that they can see what's happening in their neighborhood, so they can watch that activity. You don't necessarily need to know where they're going to, but in their area. Buyers, if you have buyers in there, hopefully you've had a phone conversation with them to get their email and get their contact information, and you have a little bit of idea of what area they would be looking in. But start with your homeowners and set it up around their area. And even worst case, if they're not, if they don't own their home and you have their address, I would still set it up around their home. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback or noise.
Right. So
hopefully that.
So seller or people that own homes, set them up on a market report, right? What the neighborhood values are and so on. And buyers, you set them up on a listing alert.
So they're seeing properties. So think about what people want to see. Homeowners want to know what's the value of their home, and buyers, they want to know what properties are out there. We always think that we have to come up with these fancy mailers, and we've got to have these, awesome blog posts, but really we just need to give them what they're looking for. They're looking for the value in their area, and they're looking for properties that would be available if they're buyers.
So for my team, we've been spending a little bit more time doing this to improve the health score in our command database so that we can set up more of them on database so that we're touching more of the people in our database, because we have over 6,000 people in our database, and that's ridiculous. I mean, we should really be doing big business if we're working that database the way that we should. So some of the low hanging fruit that we've done, and I'm sorry, my granddaughter's coming upstairs. Hi, I'm on the phone. The low-hanging fruit, can I get back with you in a second? Okay. The low-hanging fruit that we've done are our neighborhoods, our neighbors. Like, so we have that information for our neighborhoods. We're marketing to those people. And of course, where they live in the neighborhood that you can assign to them. But also, like, the people that we've done business over the last 3 to 4 years, we know where they live because we've sold them their house, right? So
Right.
We're making sure that we have them, at least all of them, in our database, and that we have some kind of touch campaigns going to those folks.
Right. Yeah,
Don't-
and again, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just think about what they're looking for.
And don't forget orphans, right? So say you sell a house, you have the listing. A buyer comes along and buys it, put them on a market report, right? After the closing, obviously. But because there's a good chance their agent isn't going to.
Did you freeze again?
You know what Stephen Latt will do at Rivertown? He'll send them a gift basket. He'll send the buyer a gift basket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah,
crazy?
because chances are that agent isn't going to follow up afterward.
All right. So we're in the database business, right? The quickest way to making the money you want is to build your database. So the 4 laws of lead generation: build a database, feed it every day, communicate with it in a systematic way, and service all the leads that come your way, right? Which kind of sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do that. So let's go back to that. We've talked about building a database, right? How important that is to get everybody in there and build that database as fast as possible. Feed it every day. That's adding people and nurturing those relationships. We talked about that a little bit. And updating the information that you get. Communicate with it in a systematic way. So for years, that's been the 8x8 the 33 touch, right, and the 12 direct. And there's different conversion ratios for those, okay? So your haven't mets, we'll start with that. That's the 12 direct, right? And that's a 50-to-1 ratio, or a 2% return is what that is.
So that means for every 50 haven't met. So let's say you have a neighborhood that you're working, and so you're mailing to that neighborhood systematically. Every month you're getting something in front of them. Over the course of that year, for every 50, you should be able to pull out one piece of business. So a 2% return.
Now that's the more expensive way to do it than the METs, right? Your METs, because you have a higher percentage of conversion and rate of return, that return is 2% or 20-to-1. For a long time, they said 12-to-2, right? For every 12 people you talk to, you get 2 pieces of business. But what they're finding is, as time goes on, since the Red Book was written, it's really 12-to-1. 1 piece of business for every 12 you talk to.
20-to-1 now.
But now it's 20-to-1.
Right. So 5%.
So if we take a look at that, right? Let's do an example, and I'll let's see. Let me share my screen here.
And so this example is really the mathematical part of the lead gen. Oh, you took exactly how I wrote it out. That's awesome, Jim. I thought you were going to retype it.
Sorry, I thought your handwriting was nice.
So this is the mathematical version of the lead gen model. So, and we're using that 5% return and 2% return on your METs and your haven't METs. And so is anybody not clear on METs and haven't METs? Is that the METs are the people who know us. If they saw us on the street, they'd recognize us. If they were going to do business, they would call us. We would be their person. They're the people that we've been meeting with once a month, talking to every quarter. Those are our METs. And then the haven't METs are all of those other people, like farming, open houses that we might pick people up. So what we want to look at, let's just use an example of if your goal was 24 closed units for the year. And you should be able to figure that out from the economic model to put your number in there. But let's just say that you want to close 24 homes this year. So if you wanted all 24 to come from your METs, so if you said, I don't want to do farming, I don't want to do mailers, I want to work strictly a relationship-based business. So you got to figure out, on the lead gen model is about figuring out how many of those people do you need. And so with the 5% return, so 24 closed units divided by 5%, you're going to need 480 of those people in your database. 480 people that are going to say, oh, I'm going to sell my home. I've got to give Peter a call right now. So those people have to be very connected to you, and you have to be really talking with them systematically throughout the year. So if you wanted all of your people to come from haven't METs, let's say you say, I have no friends, nobody knows me, I don't want to know anybody, I want to work at all farm, I don't want to work any METs. So that's the 2% return. So 24, I put a 5, but it's supposed to be 0.02 there, sorry, 0.02. That means you're going to have 1,200 of those people in your database. And you can see where that can be a little bit more expensive because those are mailers that you're having to send out. So you would need 1,200 of those people in your not METs that you're consistently mailing out to. What you really want to look for is a balanced business of METs and haven't METs. So a balanced business looks more like 75% of those 24 transactions are going to come from the people that you know. And 25%, and I don't know why I have 24. I was doing
24 transactions.
25% is supposed to come from your haven't mets. So you can see I've kind of done the math down there on the bottom. 75% of those 24 transactions is 18 transactions. Divided by your 5% return is 360 of those people that know you, trust you, and would do business with you. Plus 25% of those 24 transactions coming from your haven't met. So that's 6 transactions. Divided by the 2% return is 300 not mets. So you can see where you have a little bit more of a balanced business. And I would say that that's really what you want to be looking at. You want to be looking at the majority of your business coming from the people that you know, but you also want to be continually bringing new people in, because that database is constantly ebbing and flowing. As much as we think, you know, all of our people love us and would do business with us, our reality is some of them don't. So they transact with someone else, or they move out of the area. So those mets can fall off. Even though we may be in contact with them, we can see them naturally fall off. So we want to be bringing in new people all the time out there working those other legs of our business. So does that,
Let me add something here real quick. Even if they move out of the area, keep them in your database and still call them all the time, because they still know people here. We still get referrals from people that have moved out of the area to other states, and we still get people from them. Go ahead.
So does that, even though I have like some errors on here, and we'll redo this so it makes a little bit more sense, but any questions on this, on the mathematics of this, and your mets and your haven't mets?
All right.
So then that really tells us those numbers that we're shooting for. How many, you know, so then you'll go back and you'll look at, okay, how many people do I have? If I needed, Jim, can you throw that back up there? So if I needed 360 mets and I had, you know, 200 that are in there, I know my gap is 160. So then I want to get a plan for how do I add more mets? How do I get out there and talk with people and build those deeper relationships so I can make up that gap? And maybe on the haven't mets, you know, maybe you have 100. And so what's my plan? How am I going to structure my business? What areas am I going to concentrate on so that I can make up that gap of 200? So you start with what's my goal of closed transactions? How do I want to balance that? What's my gap? And then how am I going to make up that gap? And so that's really, so this is the mathematics. And so that part of how I make up that gap really is, they refer to that, I guess that we kind of call it like a stool, right, Jim? Like a
three-legged stool.
Legs of our stool. Or so I'll let you talk about the legs of your stool.
So let me get back to the screen. So when we talk about setting up a business plan, right, or looking at our methods of prospecting, there's certain ones that you can do. Let me share this screen. And here's a list of all the prospecting based and marketing advertising you can do, right? This is what we generally pick from. So when we look at a business plan, we say, I need to do 3 things this year. And the first one should always be your database. Always be your database. Highest return, lowest cost, right? And so then what other things am I going to do? If it's prospecting, right? Is it calling FSBOs, expireds, talking to past clients, just listeds, just solds, talking to banks, builders? What is it? Or is it something something face-to-face, right? Open houses, door knocking, client parties, booths. I know there's some people that do like bridal showers and home and garden shows. Those can get expensive though. And everything has a cost trade-off, right? Like the lower the cost, the more time you have to put into it usually, is the way it is. And then on the marketing side, you've got, what am I going to do there, right? Am I going to do direct mail? Is it going to be signs? Is it going to be farming? What is it? So you pick three legs, because what you don't want is you don't want the market to change or have a slowdown in one of them, right? Like, so if one of your stools was open houses and the pandemic hit, for a while we couldn't do open houses. So hopefully you had another couple legs of the stool to keep it from falling over, right? So you want to get 3 at a minimum. 5 is awesome, or 4. But 3 at a minimum so it doesn't tip over.
So we always look at the database being one of those that we're constantly working that database. And there's some tools that Keller Williams has, and I know, again, the Market Center teaches some classes on this. The tool that you want to look at is called a 135 or a GPS. And so what that tool looks like is you've got your one goal, whatever that is for you. It may be a dollar amount, it may be a transaction number, but you have that one goal. And then you have 3 areas that you're going to concentrate on. So the first one always being database, working your database. And what's my plan to work my database? Maybe your plan is, I'm going to meet with my top level, 5 people once a month, or I'm going to, mail something to them, or, like we were saying, the other people, I'm going to call them, I'm going to go through my database 4 times a year. So I'm going to have this systematic way of calling those people. And then you want to pick at least 2 more, like Jim said, like let's say if you pick open houses and you say, okay, open houses is one of my areas of business that I'm going to concentrate on. So then you can go a lot deeper into how do you work these open houses, the leads that come out of them. How am I servicing these leads? How are these people coming into my database? Another one maybe you're going to work for sale by owners. And then again, you develop this plan of, okay, I'm going to, I know one agent in our market center, every Saturday and Sunday, he's looking for FSBOs who are holding open houses, and he's out there and he's talking to those people. And so that's part of his plan of how to work business out of those for sale by owners. But you want to really pick 3 that you can go really deep into the process and your skills, really honing your skills in that area.
And this chart that I'm screen sharing here, it's on page 138 of the MREA book.
So you can see, like, if you tried to do all of these, you would just skim the surface on each of these. Like let's just say you pick apartments, and so it might be something that you have relationships with apartment managers, so that who's moving in, who's moving out, how can we help each other. I have people that are always looking to rent. You have people that are looking to move out. So, but it takes time. It takes a commitment to build those relationships. So you can see if you had too many of these going, you would just skim the surface of everything and not really be able to take full advantage of the leads that would come out of there.
One lead source that's not on here is attorneys, right? So divorce attorneys, probate attorneys, different ones for different things that happen. Sometimes those can also be a source of leads. So, all right, stop sharing that one. So the other thing, one of the things I'll share at the end. I don't know if this is a spot, the lead generation form. Want me to share that now?
Oh, yeah. Why don't you throw that up there?
Let me throw that up here.
And I think Heidi can share this.
So I'm going to share, when you're prospecting, keeping track of who you talk to, right? So this is our lead generation form that we use.
So this is a good, and I would have one of these for each areas that you're working. So if you're, and it says dials and contacts, you can modify this however you want. So if you were, it's meant for, like if you're doing cold calling. So you can go in, and I would probably put at the top what I was doing. I'm cold calling, or, you know, working a specific neighborhood even. And so keeping track of how many times do I dial the phone? And then, did you unshare it, Jim?
I'm going to share the back because you can see everything there.
So how many times did I dial the phone? And keeping track, you know, keeping tally on that. How many times did I have a conversation with someone? And keeping track. And again, you can modify this. So open houses, how many people came through the open houses? How many people did I actually have a real estate conversation with? And then how many appointments did I set? And so you'll start to build those conversion rates that we had talked about with the economic model for each of these sources, because you're not going to get the same return on cold calling as you may get from an open house. You know, and maybe as you're keeping track of your open houses, I have this many people through, I'm not having conversations. And then you can look at what skills do I need, or I'm having this many conversations, but I'm not getting anyone to
answer at a certain time.
Or, yeah, so you'll be able to see what areas do I need to concentrate on. But this is something with your lead gen that I would definitely use for every single source that you're working, so that you can track those numbers and see, you know, maybe open houses end up like I've done everything I can and it's just not my thing. And so then maybe you want to look at one of the other sources, or maybe you're looking at open houses and you're like, you know what, I'm killing it with open houses. So you would want to step that up in your business plan, in your GPS, so that maybe more of your business is going to come from open houses.
And really look at those numbers. So we had one guy the other day, he made 85 dials and he talked to one person and got nothing, right? The next day he made 26 dials. He talked to 6 people, got 3 nurtures, and set 2 listing appointments. That's a good day. And so for some reason, it always averages out to kind of the conversion rates, right? If it's circle prospecting or you're just cold calling, it's right around that 50 to 1. And if it's your database or people you've met, right, or been talking to and stayed in contact, the conversion rate is much better. Goes to that 20 to 1.
Yeah, much better. It's kind of embarrassing how much easier it is.
Well, like Tanya, if you use that formula, right? Because so in that formula, there was 24 transactions, 380 people or 360 people in your database. You've got the people. You've got 6,000 mats.
Yeah.
In your database.
Well,
You just got to figure out the staying in touch and communicating with your database part, right?
Exactly. Will you guys share this form? We're using CTE, which collects the same information, but some people like paper, so they may like to track this way.
Yep.
Something you can share?
Yep,
share
absolutely. It. So our people, when they prospect, they keep track of it on paper, and then once a day, in theory, they report their numbers direct, and it goes into CTE. That way we can mess with the numbers there, but they start with the paper. But we can share this.
How important is it to track the dials? Like this is something that I have a MAPS coach now, thank God, but she was like, you can't manage what you don't measure. At least you should be doing this. So we're doing this, and it's required for them to get leads from me.
Right.
but how important is the dials? Like, I feel like everything on, I don't care. I'm thinking in my mind, I don't really care how many people they talk to as long as I can see their pipeline and how many contacts.
I think it's really important, because if you don't know the dials, then you can't figure out the conversion rate. And what the conversion rate ends up being will tell you if they're saying the right things, or if you need to give them help or train them on saying the right things, right? Because if somebody is consistently talking to 100 people a day and they're not getting any appointments, or they're getting one appointment, then what's they're not saying the right thing. They're not building rapport quick enough, or they're not answering the questions correctly, right?
Well, I think the dials show me how much time do I need to put aside. Because if I'm saying, okay, I make 100 dials, and with 100 dials I can talk to 20 people, then I know, okay, that's my goal. My goal is, 100, and then how long is it going to take me to do 100 dials? So that to me, it's been helpful mostly to say, how much time do I need to set aside to do this?
If somebody,
that's very helpful.
If somebody prospects for 2 hours, right, and they only make 30 dials, then that tells me, one, they're not using a dialer. Two, depending on how many contacts they're having really long conversations, right? And so because sometimes you call somebody and it's in a senior community and they want to talk for a half hour or 45 minutes, and that just ate a bunch of your prospecting time, and you had one conversation and they're never going to move because they love their house, right? And so you got to look at that. Ideally, you want the conversations to be 6 or 7 minutes or less, so you can hit your number and talk to enough people. Otherwise, you're going to run out of time.
Yep.
Okay, and then what kind of dialer do you use? That's my next question.
We use Mojo.
Okay, and you feel like that's worthwhile?
Yes.
Yeah, we typically will use a triple line dialer with Mojo.
Yeah. It's the least expensive and the most. So like Vulcan 7 is only a single line dialer, not a triple line dialer. So it's slower and the cost is higher. Cost for Vulcan's usually about $350. Where the cost for Mojo is $10 to sign up, or per person, and then $139 for a triple line dialer. So it's cheaper.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
So I know that I'm spending too much time on each call, but what I'm finding is that because of COVID, people want to talk.
Yes.
So I want to listen, but I'm looking at my list. And I say, I mean, my heart is saying, listen, but my brain is saying, bye. I got to keep this moving. But so how do you guys feel about that? I'm being very compassionate and trying to.
So are you calling your sphere of influence, or are you calling just cold calling?
I'm calling my sphere of influence. I'm calling from Peter's call list, and I'm making cold calls. So
the sphere of influence and Peter's call list, I would spend the time with those people, right? Okay. So like when COVID hit with it, because those are the people that already know you, and if you put the time into them, that'll come back. When COVID hit, all of our agents, we just called and said, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything you need? And had a conversation, right? And some people were freaked out by everything and just needed to talk. And they remember when you just listened, right? And you were there for them. Where if you're cold calling and it's not people you know, I don't know. I try not to let those conversations go on forever. I mean, I wouldn't just say, hey, I got to go see you. But
right.
Probably wouldn't let those go on as long.
Yeah, and I think I would probably plan, if you know, hey, I'm making phone calls and I need to connect with people on a deeper level, then just plan for that. If you're making business calls, then start out by saying, hey, do you have a minute to talk about business? And this would be more if you're talking with your sphere. You might call and say, hey, this is Shannon, how would you talk with your friend? Like, hey, John, this is Shannon. You got a minute to talk about business, And so then it kind of sets that up for a business call. And then at the end, you can say, hey, is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything pressing for you? So you can bring it back around and end it with them. But if you set it up in the beginning that, hey, you got a minute to talk about business, then you can probably end that a little bit quicker, being more of a business call. But again, like John said, you got to kind of balance, what kind of calls am I making?
And that script about, hey, I'm calling about business, we talked about that last week. So Chanel probably has the link to the video and maybe the script. That's
Abe Shreve's.
Yeah. Abe Shreve is the one that did that script, and it's really good. It's a good script.
Yeah.
So the people that I'm cold calling are people that, right now anyway, are people that are shop owners and people that have served me for years and years. So now I'm trying to serve them.
Yeah. So that's a business to business thing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and that's another source, right, of lead generation in business, and I think that's a good one.
I think that really starts out by asking them, how can I help you?
Right.
And then typically it will come back around and they'll say, so how can I help you? If it doesn't, then what you can say is, my ideal client would be, just to, hey, if you're out and about, my ideal client would be this. Or if you're out and about and you hear this, that would be my ideal client. So you can bring it back around without it seeming strange. But I would start out by asking them, what do they need? And then this is who my ideal client would be.
Thank you very much. Helpful.
So we kind of went through the math of it. How do we know how many people and where is our business coming from? And we talked a little bit about some of the sources of that business and how you can make your business plan with that GPS or the 135. That's all I have on my list. I wonder if you want to open up for questions on talking about some of these sources, or what questions you guys have.
So one of the things I want to say is about the sources, right? This is all the sources. You don't have to be good at all of them, right? Pick the ones you're best at, right? So now Ashley has me self-concerned here. So we have one guy on our team that is really good at the networking side. He's much better face-to-face than he is on the phone, right? So the face-to-face activities, the open houses, the networking, that type of stuff works much better for him than if he just sat there and tried to call 600 people a day, right? So pick the things that you're best at.
Did you get called out?
By Ashley, yeah. I wasn't talking about Ashley. And now she has me self-conscious, right? So, any questions about the sources or anything with lead generation?
Yeah, you guys talked about the three-legged stool. We put a cap of 5 on sources for our team, because you can just chase the squirrel and just try so many different things, and it's so unproductive. So ideally it's 3 things, and we focus on database, open houses, and I can't remember the third thing right now. Oh, like community events and community things. So
I agree with you. You can just, and the problem is you're going down one path and you tell yourself it's not working, and then we'll switch to another one, and really you just needed to stay here a little bit longer.
Yeah, so we have those 3 core, and then we're focusing on our neighborhoods, because it hurts so much to see your neighbors put somebody else's sign in their yard. So, and they get to pick the 5th one if they want to choose to do so.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, a quick idea. What I did for my neighborhood is I just made a sign that says Resin's local, neighborhood realtor, and I've gotten 2 deals off that. So, because I hate seeing yard signs go on in my neighborhood.
We have one.
FYI.
We have one like right across the street. My neighbor right across the street that's listing her home, and at least she apologized to us because she's a relo deal, and so she's having to use a realtor. She's used this realtor many times when she moved into the neighborhood. But I thought, well, if I have to look at a sign across the street, at least she said she was sorry. But that's the worst. That's the worst, is having a sign go up in your neighborhood.
Oh, it is. It is.
Wouldn't
Love
surprise
that
me
idea,
if it
Josh.
disappears that first night.
Hold on, Jim.
Yeah.
Tanya had something.
Josh, what does your sign look like? Is it like a yard sign?
Yeah, it does. And the funny thing is when it went in the yard. I'm going through a divorce right now, so everyone thought I was selling my house. So the funny thing is I had people in my neighborhood that were my neighbors. They were calling their sons, daughters, whatever, brothers, sisters. And so I actually got a buy deal from that because people thought I was selling the house. But after a while, after 2 or 3 weeks, people just drive by it every day.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want them to see that every time they drive by. So if they're thinking about selling, at least I know I did my part as far as, telling them that I was here. So
yeah.
I'm going to steal that one.
I like that idea.
Anyone else have some areas that they're working that they've had some success that they'd be willing to share?
As far as open houses, I would say I do them pretty strategically. Have a good system down, and I know people like to do them with other people, but just realize you're sharing those leads, right? And so I like to do condo open houses just because usually, it's an older couple and they have usually a home to sell. It just seems like older people are usually easier to talk to too. So
Right.
That's the success I've had with the open houses.
Have you tried getting a lender to sit at your open houses with you instead of another person?
Then you're not splitting the leads.
I religiously do open houses. If I don't have my own listings, like I'm watching Keller Williams North. I'm watching all listings that come in, and I'm reaching out to those agents to make sure I do an open house on the weekend.
Awesome.
I will bring a lender with me if it's, under 175, because usually that's going to be a first-time home buyer. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find the lenders, they can have a different conversation, especially like you said with those first-time home buyers, that, sometimes they're uncomfortable having that financial conversation and they kind of get out ahead of themselves. And so it's nice. It's kind of a non-threatening atmosphere for them to have a financial conversation when you have somebody there.
Any other question? All right, see you, Josh. So next week's the budget model.
That's a fun one.
Arguably my favorite, right? I like numbers. But that's where your real money is made, is controlling or cutting your expenses, right? Because you can sell as much property as you want, and if things get out of control and you just spend it all, you end up with zero.
They say you can't out earn your spending, or is that what it is? Can't out earn your spending.
Yep.
And we see that with the agents a lot. Like, we have a good year and all of a sudden they're buying the new car and they're buying the new house and they're taking fancy vacations. And really the secret to staying calm in this business is understanding how to work the different seasons of our business. So like when we're now, even though we're in the pandemic, their homes are selling. It's a good market where things are moving over quick. So we have more income coming in, but this is the time when we should be storing that away. So we kind of work like we're in a down market. We store those those finances away, so that then when the market takes a shift and we're in a down market, we have the resources then. So when the market shifts, that's when we're out spending, like building our businesses, and we're taking market share, and we have the money to pick up talent and add systems to our business. So that's kind of the secret of staying calm. And that happens with the budget model, is really being dialed into those numbers, how much are we spending in different areas. So that's the benefit of the budget.
What number should give you cause for alarm?
Yeah.
Sarah will probably like this one next week.
Are you guys using Command to generate leads in your business? And if so, how is it working for you?
We are not. It's funny because we just had a call about this yesterday with somebody. So we're going to try some starting next week. But right now we are not generating any leads there. We're doing some of our own Facebook advertising, and we also use Commissions Inc. currently.
And here, like a lot of.
What's that, Tanya?
Oh, I was listening to Yvette.
Okay.
Oh, a lot of the business that we have comes out of that database. It really is a lot of building those relationships. And then our second layer is the internet leads that we have from community. And then we, like Jim said, we had met with someone yesterday, and so we'll be adding that layer, the Facebook leads. So that it hasn't been a focus for us, but it will be going forward.
If it works, I'll share it with everybody. I want to make sure it works first. But so right
Sarah,
now,
haven't you guys done some of that?
Who's that?
I have used it. It's super
some of the Facebook
affordable.
leads?
Yeah, it's super affordable. And you do get leads, and it's a matter of converting them. That's the issue, because you have to be quick and, really get in there quick. And I have a team of dual career agents, so it's kind of difficult to do that. But I am getting leads.
Yeah, I think that the secret with those leads, and we've even found it with internet leads, is our pay-per-click leads. It's not about having a ton of leads. I mean, we need the leads. Yes, the lead sources have to come in, but you can definitely clog that lead funnel when you're not working the conversion of those leads. And that's really why you have to get systematic about, how do I do my follow-up and being consistent? Because a lot of those leads, especially the pay-per-click leads, are not leads that are going to convert right away. So it's how am I coming back and continuing to have conversations and working to build relationships with people. If you just have leads that are dumping into your lead funnel, then you just have a nightmare on your hands. So you got to build those systems with your lead gen model. And again, it's the same thing. If you were going to open houses every weekend and you have all these people that are filling out your registration form, but you don't have a way to go back and continually follow up with these people or bring them into your database and send them listings, you're going to lose it. It's just going to be a nightmare. You're not going to know who's in there. So it's a combination of leads coming in and what kind of systematic follow-up do you have?
So they have better smart plans in Command now and more options for smart plans. That's kind of was my holdback before, but they've got the campaign set up where it should be very easy to at least touch people more often. So
yeah, I heard that yesterday. That's what he had told us, is they had revamped those smart plans. So it does sound like maybe that's more, you're going to see more benefit out of those now.
Yeah. So let me know how it goes for you guys.
Okay.
I will.
Yep.
Any other questions?
All right. You finished up early, a little bit.
Okay. That's a good thing. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here, and we'll see you next week when we talk about budgets. Bye.
Thanks so much for presenting. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, guys.